There's a peculiar aspect of human nature where we willingly subject ourselves to situations that erode our self-worth, often just to feel momentarily superior to others. At the heart of this paradox lies a deeply ingrained need for validation, which we satisfy by quietly manipulating those who are emotionally vulnerable. If you've ever found yourself in a tumultuous relationship, one that leaves you questioning your own sanity while somehow feeling an unsettling sense of power, you're not alone. In this video, we'll delve into the unspoken mechanisms that drive our pursuit of control and validation in secret relationships, exploring the unsettling truth behind the silent lies we tell ourselves. Our insecurities can be the most treacherous of accomplices, quietly whispering sweet nothings in our ear to manipulate those around us, often into relationships that promise a temporary fix for our aching voids, but inevitably leave us feeling emptier than before. Deep down, many of us crave a sense of control that stems from feelings of powerlessness, and will often go to great lengths to acquire it, even if it means sacrificing our genuine connections with others and our own self-worth in the process. When we're drawn to toxic relationships, it's often because we're desperate to validate our sense of self, to prove to ourselves that we're worthy, desirable, and deserving of love. But in reality, these relationships only serve as a band-aid solution, a temporary fix that we desperately cling to, even when it no longer serves us or makes us happy. There's a thin line between attraction and repulsion, and when we're unable to navigate it, we often find ourselves fixated on someone who represents the darker aspects of our own psyche, the aspects we deny, the parts we hide from others and from ourselves. The ego is a master manipulator, expertly crafting a facade of confidence and poise to deflect from our vulnerabilities and insecurities. But beneath the surface, it's constantly on the lookout for validation, recognition, and control, often at the expense of others. Ultimately, the silent lies we tell ourselves can be the most destructive of all, as we perpetuate a cycle of self-deception that keeps us chained to our insecurities, forcing us to seek validation and control in all the wrong places, and never truly finding the happiness, love, and self-acceptance we so desperately crave. The moment we're willing to risk everything for a forbidden connection, that's when the veil of secrecy lifts and we're met with an unsettling sense of freedom. Yet it's a false sense of liberation because we're simply substituting one set of rules for another. What I find fascinating is how deeply we're conditioned to believe that vulnerability only stems from love, whereas in reality, we often crave it as a means to assert control, to dictate the narrative, and to momentarily bypass the suffocating grip of our own insecurities. The reason we're drawn to these secret relationships is not because we're inherently flawed or broken, but because they provide us with a temporary refuge from the unending scrutiny of our own minds, a place where we can momentarily escape the tyranny of our ego, where we're the ones in control, and where validation is within our grasp. It's an oxymoronic dance where we're simultaneously desperate for connection and terrified of it, where the fear of rejection is matched only by the fear of being seen, which is precisely why we often seek out these shadowy dynamics in the first place. The thing is, secrecy is not a form of protection. It's merely a temporary fix for the deep-seated wounds of our own shame and self-doubt, a band-aid that only serves to mask the underlying issues rather than confront them head-on. What we're really craving in these secret relationships is a twisted sense of validation, a validation that's predicated on our ability to manipulate and control, rather than any genuine connection with another person. It's a pathetic attempt to prop up our faltering egos, to remind ourselves we're still loved, still desired, still worthy. When we convince ourselves that we're merely caring for someone's well-being, that our control and manipulation are purely for their own good, we're often just projecting our own deep-seated insecurities onto the situation. We tell ourselves we're only seeking control because we truly care, but beneath the surface, Our actions are driven by a desperate need for validation that our partner's love and affection are genuine, and that we won't lose them to someone else. The truth is, our craving for control stems from a primal fear of abandonment, a fear so intense that we're willing to sacrifice our partner's autonomy and our own relationship in the process of warding it off. We may pretend to be altruistic, to be acting out of a selfless desire to protect or guide our partner. But in reality, our actions are a thinly veiled attempt to secure our own sense of importance and relevance within the relationship. By constantly seeking to assert our dominance, to dictate the terms of the relationship, we're ultimately seeking to compensate for our own feelings of inadequacy, of being unlovable or unattractive in our own right. In our efforts to maintain control, we often convince ourselves that our partner's behavior is a direct reflection of our worth, that their love and affection are the sole validation we need to feel whole and complete, and that without it, we're nothing. In the depths of our secret relationships, we unconsciously trade validation for intimacy, often masking our deepest insecurities with a craving for control. When we manipulate others to confirm our self-worth, we become trapped in a cycle of validation seeking, forever chasing the fleeting high of ego-boosting moments that momentarily silence our inner doubts. The truth is, our desires for power and control are never about dominating others, but about compensating for feelings of inadequacy and fear of being seen and rejected. To avoid the vulnerability of true intimacy, we use manipulation as a defense mechanism, creating a mask of confidence that conceals the insecurities driving our every move. Our attraction to others is often rooted in our own unmet emotional needs, and by manipulating them into fulfilling those desires, we temporarily stave off feelings of emptiness and worthlessness. The self-deception we perpetuate through secret relationships is nothing short of a vicious cycle, where our craving for control and validation ultimately erodes our sense of self, making us increasingly dependent on the very people we've learned to manipulate. Deep down, we often find ourselves craving control in our secret relationships not because we genuinely care for the other person, but because it's a desperate attempt to alleviate our own feelings of insignificance. In reality, our drive for control stems from an insatiable need for validation and a deep-seated fear of being rejected or discarded. We pretend to be drawn to people on the surface, when in fact, our true attraction is often rooted in the sense of power and security that comes with being able to manipulate another person's emotions and behavior. Behind the mask of a charming facade, many of us lead double lives, perpetuating a cycle of self-deception that allows us to maintain an illusion of control and dominance. The more we invest in our secret relationships, the more we inadvertently reinforce our own insecurities, and the more we compromise our emotional integrity. Ultimately, our addiction to control in these secret relationships is a thinly veiled attempt to compensate for the lack of control we feel in our own lives, often a cry for help from the fragmented parts of ourselves that we dare not face. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video has helped you confront the uncomfortable truth about the self-destructive patterns that can creep into even our most intimate relationships. Remember, the only way to break free from the cycle of manipulation is to acknowledge and surrender to your own vulnerabilities. So, let's keep the conversation going. Like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of human psychology and the keys to unlocking true emotional freedom.